With the 1 year anniversary of Magic Hour podcast at hand, I'm really reflecting on all of the gratitude and the growth that this podcast has experienced in its first year. And I'm also getting really clear on where I could use some support for the community. When you start a podcast, I don't think you realize everything that goes into it. And I pour a lot of time, love, magic, and also money into this podcast. We don't yet have sponsors, and those sponsors really help sustain the podcast. So, right now, any way that the community can support the podcast is so appreciated, whether it's through sharing us on social media, leaving your 5-star reviews, telling like minded magical people about it, even joining Earth Angel Club or buying one of my workshops. If you've been on the fence to do that or check those out, it really helps support the pod, and it's so, so appreciated. I have the Be Your Own Angelic Intuitive workshop. I have the Working with Your Angels to Attract a Soulmate connection. And I also have the Healing the Witch Wound workshop. And code 333 gives you $33 off of each. You can find them on angelsandamethyst.com. And it's just so appreciated. Of course, getting a reading helps support the podcast, but those things, the workshops and Earth Angel Club, also really help. So thank you so much for all of the love of the hummingbird community, and may we continue to grow and spread the magic together. Welcome to Sitting with Spirit, my loves. Take what resonates with you, leave the rest. So, we are firmly in eclipse season right now. Not of time of recording, but I know that this is coming out right before the Aries new moon eclipse. And so, to me, as I was starting to tune into the energy of this week, it feels like momentum is building to a crescendo. The energy just feels almost like when you're at a roller coaster and you're like boop, 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 going up, up, up until you reach the top. That's how it feels like we're climbing, 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 and reaching a crescendo. And so it feels like a lot of the seeds that have been planted, like from the time of the Pisces new moon onwards, are starting to build and sprout and grow and sort of pop off at this moment. It feels big energetically this week. And I know that there's a lot of narratives around eclipse season and around any major astrological time that can be very fearful because change, which eclipse season evokes, can scare us. The unknown can scare us. And the message that I get is that there's a lot of potential for magic and joy and up level too, and to not let fear like drag you down. And so often when we talk about eclipse season, we're like, surrender, surrender, surrender. But I think maybe a more accurate word would be flow, because it's not that we're not engaging in our life. It's that we're not trying to force things to happen. Instead, we are flowing with where the energy is taking us. And that is true surrender. So, even if I was actually thinking about this before, that some of the best psychic and intuitive messages are the ones that don't make sense to our brain. And that's how you know that it's not your brain making it up. It's something that you couldn't have known. So, that's kind of what I mean by flow, too. It's like, you might think you have to move forward in this linear way, but maybe the energy is pushing you more to consider something else, bringing something else to your consciousness, opening a door in a different area, or conversely saying this needs to go and this door is shutting, but then it's like pounding on the door and trying to get it open and trying to find a key to open that door. That's not surrender. That's not flow. Flow would say, okay, I see this closing. I'm going to do my own personal work around that. I'm going to flow with what wants to come next. It's like that's the energy right now, is this sort of fever pitch, heightening, elevated energy that's pushing us. And our angels and guides are working so overtime to direct our consciousness and to get our attention. And all we have to do is surrender to it. And that surrender looks like allowing, not forcing, flowing, not forcing. It just feels really exciting. And as I was tuning into this, there was almost a little bit of a frantic element to the energy too. It feels like things this week might feel kind of rushed or impulsive or just kind of frenetic in this way. And so I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that it might give us the momentum and the push to move forward in the ways we need to, but just stay intentional and just take time to ground, check in with yourself, and to make sure you're not letting the energy sweep you up in its intensity, but staying purposeful, intentional, and trying to marry what your physical body needs with what your energetic body needs. So, a symbol that I saw around this week was a lotus flower coming into bloom. And I felt so much excitement when I saw that. And lotus flower is such a beautiful flower plant guide because it's really tied to spiritual evolution, spiritual awakening, and unfolding as our highest self. And so this really feels like a moment where we are coming into this blossom, and it's just asking us to tune into like the excitement, the spiritual evolution. I just feel like there's a level of like rewards for the hard work that we've been doing on ourselves. And so I just wanted to say, as you have again planted these seeds during the Pisces new moon, I see the fruits starting to bear now, and it just feels really exciting. Like, as that lotus flower blooms into the next level of evolution, what resonates with us, where we're going, what life looks like is going to start to change and blossom as well. So, that being said, as we enter a new level of bloom, it is very normal for, in proportion to that, a next level of self doubt, shadow, and nervous system rewiring to come up with that. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm in this next level of bloom. I see the potential, I see the opportunity, and now I'm starting to doubt myself. Like, I've arrived here, I know what the homework assignment is, I know how to move forward. And now, in parallel, in tandem with that, is the shadow work that's trying to keep us in an uncomfortable comfort zone. So I always say that self doubt is a good thing because it means that we're breaking out of a comfort zone. And it's a really exciting moment. So don't see fear, self doubt, shadow, anxiety as a messenger being like, you're not ready for this. You're not good enough. This isn't safe. That's the lie that those emotions are telling. Instead, take it as there's a deeper layer of healing, stepping into worthiness, stepping into presence, stepping into power that is available to me right now. And that is a part of the lotus flower coming into deeper bloom. There's always a little bit of discomfort when we start to take up new energetic territory. And every single person feels that, from the person who's at the top of their game in this world, from the person who keeps themselves small. We're all dealing with that same inner villain voice. And it's just, how much are we going to believe it? Or how much are we just going to take it as an invitation to do deeper healing work on ourselves? And so, in that vein, I saw snake coming up as an animal guide. And snake is so tied to shedding of the outdated skin. And this is the year of the snake. And I think being in eclipse season really activates that year of the snake energy, where it's like shedding outdated skins, letting things go. But snake also has this goddess energy and this witch energy and this healer energy. So I think there's also such themes of healing ourselves so we can be a greater healing force in the world. I think there's such themes of healing the witch wound so we can show up more powerfully in the world, and that all of this like eclipse season magic is helping us peel back another layer so we can align with that. So, snake is such a beautiful animal guide that really signifies shedding the outdated, making space for the new. And snake can be very misunderstood. And so, I think that that's also a part of the healing, is like letting yourself be misunderstood. I think we've come into this place now where everybody thinks that everything has to be for them. Like on social media and online, like we're so connected all the time. And if we came here to all agree on everything all the time, we would have stayed in the spirit world. We came here to experience duality and differences. And it's okay. Like, part of that snake medicine is really standing in your inconvenience, your messiness, your humanity, and not apologizing for it, not trying to stay small, not trying to appease everyone around you. And that's definitely a part of the healing of the witch wound as well. So, moving into the mediumship, I started connecting with a brother in spirit who showed me butterflies as one of his main signs. And I felt like he would have been very close with his sister. And I feel like this message is for a sister. And I feel like The brother and sister were almost like twins, but if they weren't twins, they would have been like twins, like born a year and a half apart, kind of look alike. Like they were always a unit, is the feeling that I got. And we're very close in age. I feel like he's been gone for about 5 or 6 years, that he passed very young. I got a J name with him. His energy felt very soft and very gentle to me and very empathetic. Like he was always taking into account the people around him and how they would feel, and that there was just a lot of consideration with him while he was here. I also felt him to be with a woman in spirit who felt like she was very protective over him and very matronly. So I feel like he joined a female relative over there who was like, I've got him. I saw sandy blonde hair. I saw some sort of heart and organ failure that I feel like he would have struggled with. I felt like he would have had sort of ongoing health stuff with his heart. And I wanna say lungs too, like this whole kinda area. There was also an interesting sort of message here about him enjoying watching his sister's witchy journey. I was seeing a witch on a witch's broom flying in a witch's hat, and it almost looked like it was a Halloween decoration put up on a door, but he was using that to give me this feeling of like, I love to see you explore this stuff, and I love to co create with you in this space. So, this goes to his message for the collective, not just his sister, where there's a message here of like, invite your ancestors, loved ones in spirit to play games with you. Like he was showing me liking to hide her rings and liking to hide her jewelry. And it's funny because this has been coming up in my personal practice where instead of just like sitting in silence for 30 minutes, I ask my guides like make something pop in the room, make the walls crack. Like I ask them to make noises. It's so fun. And if we don't know what to ask for, we don't receive it, but all we have to do is ask for these types of things, just like we ask for a sign. So I feel like if you want to invite your past loved ones to play with you in some sort of way, like for me, it's creating sounds in the room. I know some mediums have light up cat toys that they like put around and then those can light up and start bouncing. It's like just creating little things and creating that space for play because it feels like for him, it's very fun on the other side. And then he had another message as well that felt very important. It's twofold. One is we do not take it personally on the other side if you are not ready to connect with us. There are some people where the grief is so strong that they don't feel ready to connect, or the relationship was so difficult and complicated that they also don't feel ready or have a desire to connect with someone on the other side. And the message here is like, we understand that, and you don't need to feel guilty about that. Like, we have a great understanding of it. And the second part of this message is we'll meet you with where you feel comfortable when it comes to connection, whether that's seeing us in a dream, whether that's getting a sign, whether that's us completely respecting your space and boundaries and just kind of watching from afar. We will meet you where you are ready to connect with us. And that's the feeling that I got almost is like, as this sister was going on her witchy journey, it's almost like I should be connecting with my brother more. But that just felt too heavy and intense. And he's acknowledging, like, we see the grief and we understand it. We don't take it personally if you can't connect with us or don't want to, even. We completely understand. So I think that's a really important message for the collective to know. Like for his sister, that's where like the playing a game comes in, where it's like, he finds sending synchronicities to her and hiding things like a game. And that's the level of connection that won't provoke grief in her. And he meets her there, and that's enough. So, whatever your parameter is and capacity is on your grieving journey, or just your ancestral healing journey, or what you know about your relatives, it's like, just because you can understand cerebrally that they're all love on the other side doesn't mean that maybe you want to talk to them particularly. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So spirit will meet us where we are ready to hold them. Always, always, always. Claire, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, I just love these messages. And as always, I felt they were deeply for me as well, particularly the angel message. It's been interesting. As I've mentioned on the pod before, on a healing journey and just trying to like work through some stuff. And it's been interesting to see how I've taken a few steps forwards. And then it feels like this past week, I've taken all these steps backwards, or like these shadows or inner monsters are like really rearing their head. And I think initially it felt like, oh no, I haven't made any progress. But hearing what you were saying just resonated so deeply. Like, I feel like it is the progress that is creating this pushback from the old stories and old ideas. They're like, "Wait, wait, wait. You believe this terrible thing, remember?" And so I think it's like part of the healing that they're coming up to one last time be looked at or just really worked through. So it just gave me a lot of hope and comfort hearing that. And, I think in our healing journeys, we take steps forwards. And even when it feels like we're taking steps back, I think it's more just a different hard step forward, not a step back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point that what progress really looks like is kind of different than what we've been told it looks like. And I feel like there's this sense on our healing journey of like, okay, it's been a couple weeks, I'm ready to move forward, or even it's been a year and I'm ready to move forward. But these deeply ingrained wounds and patterns and beliefs took years to integrate themselves into our psyche and our heart space. And you can never knock it all out in one fell swoop because different things in the external world trigger different elements of that internal pain, and a trigger can like completely take you by surprise sometimes. So I think that that is really important. And like even just today in therapy, I was connecting with my inner child and she was like sobbing and I wanted to just make her okay. And I was like, it's okay, what do you need, what do you need? And she's like, "Why are you so afraid of sadness? Like, why are you so afraid to cry? This is what I need. I need to cry and I need to feel my feelings." We're always going right to like, how can I be okay externally? How can I stop crying? But it's like, exactly like you're saying, maybe the crying is what needs to happen so we can fully authentically move forward. Maybe these stories need to come up in a new way so we can fully authentically move forward. And so I think we've been so processed as a whole global society, humanity, where it's like the goal is stop the tears immediately, stop the uncomfortable emotion immediately. And so it's almost like on our healing journey, we only get doses of feeling the feelings and it like elongates how long the healing journey takes. And so I think that it's really healthy to feel those deeper feelings. And it's part of the duality that allows us to fully enjoy our life because we are doing that work.
Yeah, exactly. There's been a lot of shame that's come up for me around the feelings and just uncovering too how often I feel like I've been told it's too much, and that it shouldn't be. And the guilt of feeling like I have beautiful things in my life, I should be happy. But I think that is a denial of the fullness of this experience. And sadness is also tied into like deep love. And so, I think when we can recognize that, we can hold space for our sadness in a way that doesn't make it wrong, but just makes it a part of this beautiful tapestry that is the complicated experience of being human.
Yeah. And your soul chose to come in here with the moon in Pisces. You know, it's like deep feeling was an experience that your soul chose for a reason. And turning that tap off to make other people more comfortable, it's like that isn't fair to you and what your soul came here to experience either. And the right people will never feel like that's too much.
I love that. Thank you. It's true and it's important to remind yourself of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so progress is not linear. It's truly a deep spiral dance that we're constantly participating in. And I think even this idea of my inner child sobbing and being like, why are you trying to get me to stop? Like, this is what I need right now. I need to cry. I think that it's interesting when we feel shame or discomfort around emotions that are heavy, tracing back, like, where was I taught that? Where did I internalize that? Where was that modeled for me? And I think that might be part of why these emotions keep coming up is for us to meet them in a new way or to uncover something new about them. So I think as the lotus flower blossoms, it just makes sense that the shadow comes up in proportion because we're ready to face it now.
That's such a perfect way to look at it. Instead of saying, like, oh no, here comes my shadow again. I thought I healed this. It's like, no, this is in direct proportion to the healing work I'm doing.
And it's sort of like how we don't take things personally. Like we try our best not to take things personally about other people's opinions and things like that. It's like a reflection of them sometimes more than us. It's almost like putting that same principle onto our healing journey of not taking it as a reflection of who we are when those shadows come up, not taking it personally when those shadows come up, but realizing, oh, okay, this is something that I can be the observer of. I'm not like guilty of anything. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm observing this, taking the information and not taking it as a personal part of the story I tell myself about who I am. It's more a projection of like inner child pain, ancestral stuff, societal stuff, just like everything is a projection. I think when we can take our ego out of it in terms of assimilating it into the story we tell ourselves about who we are, it also might bring less judgment to our healing journey and more just, again, flowing with what is. Like I was talking about in the beginning, it's like this moment is surrender. Surrender doesn't equal static. Surrender equals flowing with what's coming up and where our consciousness is leading us right now and not fighting against that current.
That's so true. I think sometimes surrender can seem like giving up, but surrender is choosing to be in flow. And we get such benefits when we choose to do that versus like fighting upstream or resisting. And I just love what you said about not attaching to the story of our wounds. It's like, if you see a child that's being mistreated, you wouldn't judge that child for feeling wounded by that. But somehow we judge ourselves for having these wounds that, like you said, took years to implant in our psyche and aren't our fault that they're here, but now we have an invitation to relate to them differently now that we're aware of them.
Yeah, and we can hold ourselves in the ways that maybe we needed to be held and didn't have the opportunity to when we were younger too. And that's just so powerful. And like anything, it gets easier as you go because you start to be like, oh, I've been here before. I've been in this triggered spot before. I've been in this low before, and I know what to do now. And I think a big part of it is that surrender piece that we keep talking about. Surrender doesn't mean I surrender the battle, like I lose. That's not what surrender means. Surrender means I lay down my sword and I meet this trigger and test and pain with complete open arms, curiosity, love, patience, self acceptance. That is so important. Just laying down the part of us that wants to dismiss it, talk over it, love and light over it, mantra over it, and instead just surrender to feeling it because that might be the exact thing your angels and guides are leading your consciousness through so you can get the message. So there is room for something new to come in so that you are seeing things in a new way that opens up other pathways. And the more we're like, no, 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 it gives me this image of trying to feed kids their vegetables like little babies. You have to be like, vroom, vroom, like pretending a little airplane's going in their mouth. And they're like, no, no, no. And like, that's how I see our angels and guides bringing up deeper shadow. It's like, we don't want that. We don't want that. It's like, yeah, but eat your vegetables. Like, your shadow work are the vegetables. You'll get the dessert after your vegetables. And it's almost like they're trying to gently spoon feed us our vegetables. And we're like, no, no, no.
That's hilarious and feels so true.
Right? They're like, we know what's good for you, sometimes more than you know what's good for you. Just eat your vegetables. And we're like, we don't want to. We want to skip right to dessert.
And that's me. That's classic me.
I know. Well, amazing. I hope these messages are helpful. I hope you all have a beautiful Aries new moon eclipse, and we will see you next week.